busy in your face movie.
Yeah. Just a little bit closer. Congratulations on the film.
Well, thank you.
And I'll tell you what, I'm going to do this. I'll leave it there and we can sit back and relax. I enjoyed this film a great deal, and I liked that it works on two very different levels. I like that I can go and just sit back and be freaked out by the idea that there are these creatures like little aliens almost that can eat you from the inside. I can enjoy that at on a Saturday afternoon matinee, or I can take away the message I think that's there, which is we have to be careful about what we're dumping into our waters and what we're putting into our bodies, and the things that are happening in our world. We have to pay a little bit more attention. And was that your intention, to make a double-pronged kind of film in that way?
Well, it is certainly. I mean, it was the motivating factor. Mm-hmm. Chesapeake Bay is seriously polluted. Has dead zones in it. It is a toxic soup. And so all of that stuff is there, and then of course you bring it into this storytelling, and so it just gives it a little more credibility rather than just make up all these things. So that seemed a natural flow in a way.
When did you become aware? I mean, you're from Maryland. You're on film, certainly your roots are showing. In all the way through. There's a through line in your work. It obviously means a great deal to you. Tell me a little bit about when you first became aware that 40% of Chesapeake Bay is essentially dead.
It came up when I had the meeting with these people about doing the documentary about the Chesapeake Bay, and that came up. That was the first time I heard that 40% dead. And I think I said to you, and so they asked if I would do the documentary, and then I started to do some research, and then part of the research is that PBS did a documentary with Frontline about the Chesapeake Bay, and said it was 40% dead, gave all this information, and I was like, I went, holy God, I mean, that's amazing, what a terrific documentary. And somehow people didn't seem to be that concerned. Right. They go, yeah. And so I thought, well, I can do a documentary and do it much better than that. That's a really good documentary.
Why is it, do you think, that people aren't concerned?
Well, you know what happens? I think there's so much clutter that we just sometimes just don't pay attention. Right. And so I began to think, the question you asked, why aren't we? Right. And then I thought, well, maybe there's too much clutter. And maybe we need to, and that's what led to this whole thing, maybe we need to take all of that science, all of those facts, and put it into a storytelling mechanism, right. A film, with characters, struggling on that given day. And maybe that makes the facts more interesting, because now we've given a real context to it all. People will die, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. You go, oh, and maybe that would be, and that's what led to the idea of doing the Bay.
Now, it's a found footage film, I guess, is the genre. Was that always the idea behind this? As you were playing around with various ways, maybe if you were playing around with various ways of presenting this material, was that always?
Well, first of all, I don't know how to approach anything in terms of genre, because right. I think if you think in genre, then you sort of limit yourself. Like, oh, here's the genre. It is the process of how something begins to flow. A documentary doesn't seem right. All the facts leads to sort of storytelling, which leads to the idea of film. And then, how do you tell the story? If it was going to be a documentary, then why don't we shoot it that all of the people, that we collected all the footage from all of these different people, and it has a documentary quality to it because everybody was running around with their cameras, and then that's what we gathered, and then we try to put it together to present the story. And so that just by nature seemed the way to go about it. Like, if you go, well, how do we do it? Oh, that makes the most sense. And so that was sort of it. And therefore, you say, okay, now we have to use unknown actors. Because if you use really well-known actors, it kills all the credibility of the piece. And even though we'll know it's a movie, it's not like we're going to fake people out like, oh, I didn't realize this was a movie. I thought it was a documentary. We all know it's a movie.
Right.
But if you're trying to say that this was actual footage shot by these people and it's Brad Pitt, it just kills all credibility.
Right.
And so the idea kicks off, therefore you have to do this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this. And that's how it evolves.
Well, and you also have the idea that if Brad Pitt or Will Smith or whoever is a star of that level, or Tom Cruise is in the sort of the heroic role, you know that nothing bad's going to happen to them by the end of the movie, you know?
It's a different kind of thing, so therefore you go down that road, you know, and I shot it very quickly. I shot it in 18 days. I shot it for a little over $2 million. And all those things are all part of it.
Shooting very quickly like that, does that mean that you're working from instinct, you know, completely in a way that maybe you wouldn't be if you were working on a film that had, you know, $100 million budget, and they're two different animals, right?
Well, they are different animals. I mean, I've shot both. I mean, I did Wag the Dog in 29 days.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was shot I don't mind shooting fast, and I don't mind shooting from the hip, and I don't mind making decisions like, all right, do this, do this, do this, do this. That's okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with thinking on your feet. I mean, I've done a lot of improvisational stuff. It's how I began, so I'm not afraid to experiment. I understand enough about the writing that, okay, we can go to here, but if we go over here, we're off course too far. You know, you have to understand the mechanics and structure at the same time.
Right.
You know, because otherwise improvisation can go any place, and then that's no good. You can only improvise where it's actually structurally moving you along.
Well, yeah, that's why you can never say no. I mean, there's rules to improv, I think, that can, if you say no, it stops the scene dead, but if you could push it too far, then you're, you know,
Yeah.
you're in la la land, I guess. Yeah. So, did the idea of working with large ensemble casts, as you have in the past, that I would think played well here, because while I don't know that I'd call this an ensemble cast, there's a lot of characters, because we're seeing a town under siege, so we're seeing snippets from a lot of people.
From different points of view.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's where it probably differs from this concept of found footage thing, because found footage is normally fairly contained.
One guy with a camera running through the streets, you know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a contained movie. It's in a house, it's in something, you're in the woods.
Right.
You know what I mean? Here, you're all over the place. You're underwater, above water. It happened 8 weeks ago. It's, you know, it has a bigger canvas to it. But it was the footage that was collected in order to put it together to make sense out of what happened and who didn't do what they should have done, etc.
Right, right. I liked that there's a framework for this as well. There's a narrator, essentially, who walks us through this rather than the idea of just presenting this footage and letting us connect the dots, because the story, I think, needs that to propel it forward. There are some of films of this style that don't have that just rely completely on the images, and often the images aren't good enough to keep you interested all the way through. And I like the framework of
Oh,
this.
thank you.
And I like that the movie has a little question mark at the end as well. You know, it doesn't wrap up everything in a nice, tidy little package.
I also thought that the fact that she is she in a sense failed as a reporter, and now she's looking back and she can tell you that she didn't do this and she didn't do this.
Yeah.
And she didn't understand that, and she was ill-prepared in a way. She was in over her head.
Right.
And there's a certain consequence to that, and there's a certain guilt that she has. Even though we can't spend a lot of time with it, you sense that. And she can make fun of herself a couple of times, so it's a little humor in there as well. You know?
Is that any kind of comment on the media, or is that just sort of the way the story evolved?
It's just the way the story evolved, because, I mean, she was just a student.
Yeah.
I mean, so you can't have great expectations. So it was just a student trying to cover something, and she was in over her head. And 3 years later, you see that she's beginning to make sense of what she didn't do, etc. And she seems more grown up and less childlike.
She does, and it's the same actress, and that's the thing, because I assume it was all shot at essentially the same time, you know, or within the 18. And you do. There's a more, not childlike, but there's a more youthful way about her in the thing, and then even her appearance just seems more kind of worn down, as though she's lost nights of sleep thinking about this. So, you know, that's our time. They're going to, yeah. She just gave me the wrap.
It's really, well, great talking to you again.
Nice to chat with you. Thank you, and congratulations.